October 14th, 1987. I am going to tell you that date because I need you to feel how specific this is, how real. October 14th, 1987, a Wednesday. James and I had a colleague from his school, Jeffrey Marsh, same age as James, 50 exactly. Good man, funny, the kind who makes every room warmer. Jeffrey died that morning, heart attack, at his desk, in the middle of correcting papers. He was not sick. He was not old. He was 50. I was 47 when Jeffrey died, and something in me, something that had been quietly assuming there was time, shifted. Not that day, not that week, but that autumn things changed. My name is Dorothy Sinclair. I am 89 years old, and I want to talk to you today about the mistakes I have seen people make in their 60s that shorten their lives. Not in a medical textbook way, in a real, lived, I watched it happen way. Before I tell you the 5 mistakes, I want to say something about what happened in me after Jeffrey died, because it is the background to everything else. I walked home from the school that afternoon in October. It was about 4 miles. I had never walked it before. I do not know entirely why I did that day. I remember the walk very clearly, the particular light of a late October afternoon, the leaves on the pavements, the ordinary people going about their ordinary business, entirely unaware that Jeffrey Marsh, a good funny man of 50, had died that morning at his desk. I thought about my own desk, about what I would be in the middle of if it happened to me. And I thought, is this what I want to be in the middle of? Not that particular task, in the broader sense. Is this the shape my days have? Is this how I am using whatever time I have? I did not answer that question dramatically. I did not make grand changes overnight. But the question stayed, and over the years that followed, it shaped decisions I made that I am glad I made. That question, is this how I am using the time I have, is the most useful question I know, and I offer it to you before anything else. Mistake 1. They stopped moving and called it rest. I understand the appeal. After decades of work, the body wants to stop. And there is a version of stopping that is genuinely restorative. But there is another version, where retirement becomes a long settling into a chair, into a routine of very little movement, where the body begins to assume it is no longer needed. James had a colleague who retired at 62. He was a vigorous man. He walked everywhere, tall, full of opinions. Within 3 years of retirement, he had gained considerable weight. His joints suffered. His energy was gone. He told James at a dinner, I thought stopping was the reward at the end. Turns out stopping was the punishment. He died at 74, 12 years after retiring, 12 years of not moving. Your body does not want rest, it wants use. There is a difference. Give it use. The body was built to move, not to perform extraordinary feats, simply to move, to walk, to carry things, to bend and reach and climb stairs. The ordinary movements of a day lived in a body that is being used. When you stop giving the body those movements, it takes that information seriously. It begins to reduce what it maintains. The muscle that is never called upon becomes the muscle that disappears. This is not metaphor. This is what happens. I have watched it happen to people I knew. I have seen the difference between the people who kept moving and the people who stopped. Keep moving. Not vigorously necessarily, just consistently, every day. That is the whole of the instruction. Mistake 2. They let their social world shrink and did not notice it happening. This one is subtle, because it happens the way a tide goes out, not all at once, gradually, and you do not notice until you look up and the water is very far away. A colleague retires, you stop seeing them. A friend moves to be closer to their daughter. The card at Christmas becomes the conversation. Then one of them dies, and another, and another. And suddenly you are 68, and you have 3 people you would call in a crisis, and you cannot remember when that number fell from 12. I did not let this happen. Not entirely. I knew what to watch for because I saw it happen to my own parents. When my parents retired, they had a wide circle. Within 10 years, it had narrowed to almost nothing. Not through cruelty, through ordinary inertia. No one chose the distance. They just stopped choosing closeness. The body needs connection as much as it needs food. I believe that now more than I believe almost anything. Choose closeness, actively, repeatedly. It will not happen without choosing. What I mean by choosing closeness is very simple. Pick up the telephone, accept the invitation, initiate the gathering. Walk over to the neighbor you have not spoken to. Say yes to the thing you were about to decline. Each of those choices is small. The accumulation of them, over years, is the difference between a life that is connected and a life that has slowly closed. And I cannot prove this, but I believe it. The connected life is a longer one, not just a happier one. Longer, because the body that knows it is needed, that has people waiting for it, that has something to show up for, that body has a reason to keep going. Mistake 3. They stopped having a purpose and called it freedom. I made a version of this mistake myself. In the first year after retirement, I did not know what I was for. I said freedom when people asked how it felt. But freedom without direction is not freedom, it is drift. Drift is dangerous, for the mind, the body, the spirit, all 3. The people I have known who lost years after retirement were not lazy people. They were people who lost direction, whose identity had been their job, and when the job went, they did not know who they were without it. Within a year, I had found my purpose again. Reading groups, mentoring, grandchildren. The book I started writing and probably will not finish, but the writing matters, not the finishing. You must have something to be for, not in a grand, abstract way, even small, even private, something that makes tomorrow meaningful. Without it, days become interchangeable. And when days become interchangeable, something that is very hard to name begins to leave. I have seen it happen. Capable people, people who had spent 40 years building things and running things and making decisions, who retired and within 5 years were barely recognizable. Not from illness, from the absence of purpose. The purpose does not have to be something others recognize. It simply has to be yours. something that requires you to show up, something that makes a claim on your attention. If you are approaching retirement and you do not know yet what that purpose will be, start looking before you need it. The transition is much smoother when the next thing is already present. Mistake 4. They carried the stress they had accumulated without ever setting it down. I had a friend named Helen. We had known each other since the teacher training days. She was bright, capable, and anxious in a particular way that is very common in capable people. Everything was managed, but the managing cost her. Helen managed her way through her 40s, her 50s, her 60s. When she retired at 63, she had the appearance of release, but the anxiety did not go. It had become structural, part of how she was organized. She was always worried about something: her children's lives, her health, the news. She marinated in concern. She had 3 significant health events between 65 and 72. The doctor said stress was a contributing factor in all 3. James always said, "The worrying is never the preparation you think it is." He was right. Chronic worry does not protect you from things. It simply keeps your body in a state of emergency when no emergency exists, and the body cannot sustain that indefinitely. Helen died at 79, younger than either of us expected. She had been so careful about everything, except the worry. I think about Helen often, about what she might have had, what the body might have been able to do if it had not spent so many years in a continuous state of low-level alarm. The worry consumed what she needed for other things. That is not a metaphor. That is, I believe, what happened physiologically. The antidote to chronic worry is not positive thinking. It is not telling yourself that everything will be fine. It is learning gradually to trust that you can handle whatever comes, not prevent it, handle it. That trust is built over years, and it is built not by avoiding difficulty, but by surviving it. Every hard thing you have come through is evidence that you can come through hard things. Use that evidence. Let it accumulate into a kind of confidence that does not require certainty. Mistake 5. They did not ask for help until the asking was an emergency. I almost made this mistake myself. I am built to manage, to not need, to handle things. After James died, I was handling things alone for longer than was good for me. Not dramatically, quietly, managing. The things that fell through the management was small. The meal not eaten because it was too much effort to cook for one. The walk not taken because there was no one to go with. The fall risk in the bathroom that no one knew about because I had not told anyone. Catherine noticed, eventually. She came one Thursday and said, carefully, the way she has learned with me, "Mum, I need you to tell me when things are hard, not so I can fix them, just so I can know." I sat with that. Just so I can know. I had not understood until that moment that being known was a form of protection, that the people who love you cannot help you with what they cannot see. So I started telling her, the small hard things, the bath rail that needed fixing, the days when my knee made the stairs difficult, the evenings when the quiet got too quiet. Nothing dramatic, just true. And it helped, more than I expected, which should not have surprised me, but it did. The people who declined fastest in their later years were not the ones who had health problems. Many of them had health problems and managed. The ones who declined fastest were the ones who became invisible to the people who loved them, who insisted they were fine until the day it became impossible to insist. Do not be invisible. Let the people who love you see you, the real version, the one that has hard days, the one that needs the bath rail fixed. That is not weakness. That is the prerequisite for being cared for. And being cared for is one of the things that keeps you here. Geoffrey Marsh died at 50, correcting papers. I have thought about him many times since 1987, not with grief, I did not know him that well, but with a particular attentiveness that has stayed with me. He reminded me, before I was ready to be reminded, that there is a limit, that it comes without announcement, that what you are going to do with the time you have, you had better decide. I decided. Not that day, not that year, but I decided. And I have been deciding, repeatedly, every year since. That is how it works. Not one grand decision at 60, a series of small ones every day, every morning. Every time you choose movement over stillness, connection over retreat, truth over comfort. If you are in your 60s right now, this is the decade. Not the decade of winding down, the decade of deciding. Make good decisions. Leave me a comment if something here was useful. Tell me which of the 5 you recognize in yourself. I read every single one. And share this, not because I need the audience, but because someone you know is making one of these mistakes right now, and they might not know it yet. Send it to them. That is the most useful thing.